Let's go.
Welcome to the SOULFAM Podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, SOULFAM co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the SOULFAM Podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the SOULFAM Podcast.
Welcome to the SOULFAM Podcast. We are so excited to be speaking with Drew Linden, co-owner of New Moon Studio. Drew uses they, them pronouns, and they are an overall amazing human and badass magician. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we were just talking about the pronouns thing, and Diana and I are going to try really hard not to fuck it up and to get better and just to be better. And it's not that hard. I'm telling you, my sister is like, it is not that hard. Like, get your shit together. But you were about to give us an example that might help us and some of our listeners.
Yeah, totally. So I think the best way to kind of like put it out there, and the best example I had heard is that like when someone leaves an umbrella at a restaurant table and you've now sat at this table and you're not going to say, oh, she left her umbrella or he left her umbrella if you haven't seen who's like left, right? They left their umbrella. And so I think that is a thing that we constantly use, like, oh, they've done this or they've gone here. When you can't put your perception on a person and then go ahead and place your perception on that person, whether it be their gender or the way that they're wearing clothing or whatever, I think a blanket way to go about life, especially now, given the language that we do have readily available for us, is to not assume someone's gender just based on the way that they look. I present very femme, but I'm a non-binary person, and the pronouns that I use are they, them. So going about in your world, you could meet someone new and you could say, oh, my name is so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. The pronouns I use are she, her, they, them, he, him, whatever, but to just be able to refer to people as they, them off the get-go is a really good way to start that practice until someone says, oh no, my pronouns are this or my pronouns are that.
Mm. That is a really good strategy, and I love that. And if you're not getting an email from somebody that has their preferred pronouns in their signature, a lot of people do send emails that way, and it's really helpful. But just in real life introductions, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's like let's assume that I'm not assuming your gender, you're not assuming mine. I use she, her. Nice to meet you. And yeah, you can do this in real life too, is what you're saying. And that's okay.
Definitely. And as far as like the whole email signature thing, no one ever reads that. I
read it.
I still get emails from clients, and I understand that it's like a new thing for a lot of people, right?
But it's been like a couple years now.
Yes. But I think that like a lot of people, I've been alive for almost 40 years. And in that there's only been about 2 years where I've been non-binary or have come out as non-binary. So a lot of people, it's hard for people to then start using, those pronouns when they've known and they've been conditioned through society since they were children to use, she, her pronouns when referring to someone who looks female, So I think that is also a thing. It's like, once you start using it in your day-to-day life, you use it in every other facet. And for me, it's been harder to correct people because I don't want to have to deal with the sorry bombing.
No, it's not your job either. Like you would do nothing else all day but correct people. And that's our job as, friends and co-magicians and allies to do a fucking better job. And you know what? That's what you don't need to be correcting us because you would have no time to do anything else.
Yes, it's true. It's very true.
So,
but I
thank you so much for
segue into it. I love talking about gender. I think it's very fun and fluid, much like magic.
Yes. Okay, so let's segue into magic. So that's where we met, Drew, was doing magic with 22. A lot of our guests are 22 alumni or have been there, affiliated of sorts. So 22 teachings, affiliated people are always welcome here on the SOULFAM podcast, but you actually tattooed something on my shoulder. You are an amazing tattoo artist.
Thank you.
And you currently co-own the New Moon Studio in Brooklyn. Is that correct?
Yes. It's in a little neighborhood called Dumbo, which stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass. So it's a very, very beautiful up and coming space. I mean, 15 years ago, you wouldn't go down there by yourself, but now it's very affluent. It's a beautiful, beautiful place that you can go and look at both of the bridges, the Manhattan and the Brooklyn Bridge. It's really been lovely. And it's been the home of New Moon for the last 5 years. So I love it down there. It's like a love-hate relationship. I think everyone who has lived in New York for many years knows that relationship with New York where you absolutely love it and you also absolutely hate it.
Speaking of love-hate relationships, we sort of heard that you might potentially be considering a move to the West Coast.
Oh no, it's not even a might. It's definitely happening. I think too, that weekend that we met, Lexi, it was kind of the initiation into a lot of different things, into 22 and into just this dedication of my path in magic. And also just knowing that since basically November of 2022, I knew that something massive was coming. And I've said it multiple times that I was like, something big is coming. I just don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is. And I just, gave it up to God, so to speak. And when I came to LA for that weekend for Fool's Day, I was like, wait a minute, is this it? Could I live back in California, in LA for the first time? I'm from San Diego originally. That's where I learned how to tattoo. And, if you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, I'd have been like, there's no way I'd move back to California. You couldn't pay me to move back to California. But sometimes those things just come around, And so, yes, I am moving to LA in January, the end of January. I celebrate my 40th solar return on the 28th. And I plan
Happy
to be
birthday.
Yes, I plan to be in LA by that date.
Amazing.
So are you extending your services and your work and your studying to be both coasts, or are you moving completely to the Los Angeles area sort of semi-permanently? Nothing's permanent these days.
I've been bi-coastal for about 10 years now, living in New York, but traveling to, the West Coast quite often. Obviously, during the pandemic, a lot of that slowed down, but I was in California 2 to 3 times a year up until that point. And so that's basically what's going to continue, is that I'll be bi-coastal. I will be living in LA, but I will come back to New York definitely this first year in 2024 every 3 months. So I already have plans to travel back in May, and then again in August, and then again in November. So it's like I had to basically plan out my entire year before it even started, so that clients and friends and things like that could know that I'd be coming back. So LA is going to be home. I'm going to make it home, But I think that's what's so wonderful about having kind of a nomadic job, is that New York will always be home too, and I've said this to so many people that I'm so excited about moving to LA with a New York state of mind, because I have been so many different people, you know, in, you know, over the decade that I've lived here, that I'm just so excited to then come to a new space and just be this person, you know, like be this new person and then see this person grow into the multiple people that I'm sure to be, you know.
That's really interesting. Has that influenced your work as a tattoo artist? And I understand what you mean about sort of the transformations you've gone through as a human, and how you feel about yourself, and probably how you feel about the world in general. But I'm super curious. And I think maybe you need to share a little bit more about your tattoo work, because it is truly beautiful and amazing and sort of one of a kind. And I am not a tattoo person, but in looking at your tattoos, there's an emotionality to your work that, I mean, seems to sort of pop off the skin, pop off the artistry itself. And you sort of get involved in it without even knowing it.
I mean, I really appreciate that so much as someone who I think any creative might be able to kind of recognize this within themselves, is that I'm very I'm like, oh no, I'm not that good. Like, it's fine. You know what I mean? But I do have that confidence within me to say, like, I really appreciate you seeing me in my work, right? Because I think that's ultimately what my tattooing is that I want to convey myself and my client within the work. So I feel like, you know, when I was thinking, you know, back to these questions, and it was like, how do I explain this? And it's like, it's just me, right? Like, I think that for me, when I decided to become a tattooer, it wasn't because I was like, I love the art, you know. I mean, I did. Don't get me wrong, like I did. But like, the reason why I wanted to become a tattooer was to have the relationships with people. So people are very important to me. And so I think that along with my empathy and my way of being able to almost like meet someone and then immediately just be friends, you know, I have that like open bit about myself, that in creating something with another person, it becomes even more personal. I mean, Lexi, when we were going to work together on Fool's Day, you wanted this totally different tattoo.
I did. I know. I mean, it was amazing, Diana, because, well, I am a tattoo person, kind of. You just can't see them all right now. But so Drew offered like a flash deal. So there was like a special price for the event at 22 that day. And there was some pre-drawn.
Yeah, for the school. I did images for the school, basically the school's logo. I did some of the more like elemental things that we work with at the school, and I drew them up for people to choose. Like, I basically drew a sheet of flash, and you were able to choose whatever design you wanted to get.
So one of them was a giant pentacle. Diana, it was so beautiful. So a pentagram, right? Mm-hmm. With spirit on top, facing the right way. Mm-hmm. Okay. Spirit on top. Mm-hmm. With a ring of like ornate vines and flowers around it. And it was so gorgeous. And I was like, yes, this is my chance to get a giant pentagram on my back with flowers. Like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And so I think I was up towards the end of the day, and I think you drew it on me, or you put the sticker on me.
The stencil,
first.
Yeah.
The stencil. And we went to the bathroom and looked at it, and I got really sad. And I was like, I don't think the circle is straight. I don't know. I don't like it. And you somehow honed in on the fact that I had really deep feelings about my spine not being totally straight. I was like, yes, it's true. I have mild scoliosis, and I feel like this is just going to make it look ugly, and I'm so sad, and why can't I have a normal back? And you're like, well, hold on a second. Maybe we don't do this today. Maybe we do the pentagram another time with just lines.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to like that better. because the circle, what you're reacting to is the circle, and that doesn't have to be there. So if you don't have to get anything today, what I did end up getting was like a tiny little, I got the school logo. I thought it was really cute. It had a yod and like that staff of Hermes, the caduceus. But I appreciated that so much because I honestly have usually been rushed in tattoo shops. The people are talented, but they're like, what do you want? If you don't know what you want, like, go away. And so that was a really beautiful experience. It was very touching.
Well, it's interesting because those stories, the one you were like, you know, I feel like I've gotten rushed into it or whatever, are something that I hear from my clients like on the like weekly, you know, whereas like, oh, they walked into a tattoo shop and they got a tattoo that they like, but they feel like it could have been better if there was a little bit more, you know, thought put into it. Whereas like, I understand that this is a job, right? Like you're paying for a service. I'm being paid so that I can pay my rent and I can put food on my table and, you know, take care of my 2 cats. The thing about a tattoo is that you don't just leave the shop and then that's it. You're done thinking about it and whatever. That tattoo is going to be on you for at least 2 weeks after you're dead. And that is a little joke. Oh. That's a little tattoo joke that my mentor used to say. So, and I still use it all the time.
I love it.
And you're also walking out of this very intimate situation with me and a bit of me on you forever. Right. And so I never want a client to feel pressured into getting something or doing something that ultimately maybe in a year, maybe in a week, maybe in the next day, they're going to feel a certain way about, you know. I want to make sure that my clients are always going to leave the situation, the room with me, feeling like they were taken care of, they were listened to, they were seen, and they were heard, you know. And so I understand when you just have this idea in your head and you're like, this is going to be great and wonderful. And then when you're actually presented with the image, you're like, actually, maybe not. This isn't what I wanted. And I'm kind of sad about it. But the thing is that there's always a way to make what you want a possibility. It just comes together and has to be a collaboration between you and your tattooer. So at that time, you and me, right? Like, we're making something together. It's never just me putting a tattoo on you and that's it. No, that is what's so wonderful. And why I love tattooing so much is because I'm able to sit with a person and we're able to create an image that is going to be your favorite tattoo for the rest of your life, you know? And that's where like, I keep seeing this one image in my head about sitting on the couch with a client of mine and them saying, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be pressured. I don't want to pressure you. I don't want you to do something you don't want. And I'm like, yo, we need to cut that right now because ultimately I'm here to serve you. And I want you to know that whatever concerns you may have, whatever changes you may need to make, we're going to do it because nothing is permanent until I start tattooing. So let's make sure that when we get to that point where you're ready to get tattooed, it's exactly what you want. That's what's most important to me. You know, obviously I'm not going to sit here and put something on you that I think is a bad idea. Never, you know, but I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to talk to you about that. And then you're going to understand why I feel that way instead of me just being like, oh no, you're going to get this, sit down, shut up. Like there's no part of me that ever wants to do that. You know? So I think that ultimately when I move to LA, we are going to do the Pinnacle. And maybe it's going to be somewhere that you can see a little bit more visibly, somewhere that isn't going to distort that circle, or we're going to do it on your back and it's just going to be beautiful straight lines, you know? We can make it happen.
That sounds perfect. And I saw that you do microblading. Do you tattoo eyebrows?
I do.
Eyebrows as well?
Yep. I do.
Okay, because these are fading. I'm like about ready for some new ones. And I was just thinking like, I was about to go off on this tirade about how just toxic masculinity. And that's why I was rushed in a tattoo shop most of the time. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, I got rushed in my eyebrow tattoos by not men doing my eyebrows. So like, maybe I just need to stop being a doormat and like put my foot down.
Well, yes, but I also want to make very clear that toxic masculinity does exist within femmes. Like it's, I mean, it's something I had to work really hard on, and I still work really hard on daily, because the tattoo industry is built on toxic masculinity. And I think if you've been on the internet and follow any sort of tattooers, I'm sure you've seen that tattooing also had its full-blown Me Too movement, where, sexual assault was alive and rampant, and probably still is. But I think you have to understand that what is happening to your body is you. And so when you are going to have a service done, there is an amount of trust that you're putting in your practitioner, right? Whether it be energy work, whether it be tattooing, whether it be massage, there's vulnerability there, right? Which is beautiful. I mean, it's wonderful, because not only are clients being vulnerable with me, I'm also being able to be vulnerable with them, which is a very, can be a very emotional space, But ultimately, your body's going to tell you if this is a good place or not, right? And so I think that's also being able to trust yourself. And if someone is pushing you to do something that you're like, I don't really know about this, or you know what, I just need like 5 minutes to sit here with it, to really think about it. If they're not going to allow you to do that, leave. You don't owe them anything, right? Like, you don't owe them the setup time. You don't owe them the explanation of why you don't feel comfortable. You get up and you leave, that's just me. And I think it does take strength to be able to do that. Again, it's a society thing, right? But I think that you have all the power in that situation. It's like when you go and buy a car, they are going to try and talk you into spending as much money as you can, but you're the one with the power. You're the one that's got to spend the money in order for them to get the commission. So you can say, you know what? No, and leave. That's it. It's easier said than done. And I understand that. But I think that it's definitely important.
When a client comes in, and I don't know all of the background in magic, and perhaps you want to share a little more about that, but I'm curious if there's an instant sort of read on a client that you kind of can't help but do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So when a client comes in, I am never trying to gender someone. I think that's what you asked about, the pronouns situation. I'm definitely not. I refrain from using, gendered pronouns like of the binary, right? So, on our release form, we have, state your pronouns. When you go to my website to fill out a consult request form, the first question I ask is pronouns, so that I know when I'm going into this situation where we're going to be at, right? And I'll even ask right then and there, if I haven't been able to look at the paperwork yet, like I'll ask you like, my pronouns are they, them. What are your pronouns? Because it always is easier when I share my vulnerability and my pronouns to someone, and then have them be able to respond to that, instead of me just being like, oh, what are your pronouns? And then maybe feeling a little off guard by that. My pronouns are they, them. What are your pronouns? And I feel like I've forgotten then what the rest of your question was.
Well, I asked a couple of things. It's confusing. Trust me, I'm as confused most of the time, but because things roll in as I'm asking. But I was curious about you two met through 22 teachings. So you have started to do. What kind of work have you started to do within tattooing and tarot? Am I understanding?
Oh, yes.
The combination.
Okay. Yes. All right. So I now I've started offering tattoo consults, tarot tattoo consults. So When I came to the school, initially I wanted to create a deck, right? I wanted to do my own deck. And I had been reading tarot for myself intuitively for decades. But I wanted, in order to create this deck, I wanted to have a solid foundation. And funny enough, I was sitting with Naha this weekend because she was just here in New York, and I was telling her this story. And so when I came to the school to get this like solid foundation in tarot, it then opened up all the other doors, you know, to Hermeticism and magic and ceremonial magic. And I mean, like once I took magic fundamentals, I was like, I'm here. Like, this is what I've been like looking for. Right. And so, after I finished her courses and started reading for a few of my friends and feeling more comfortable reading for other people, I wanted to bring this into my tattooing practice. You know, tattooing has been my life for 20 years, right? Like, I've been eating, breathing, sleeping, tattooing forever. And now being able to then bring something more personal, like my spirituality within my tattooing, it's really just like opened up so many other doors within that. And it's super fun, right? Like, due to the pandemic, I started doing consults on FaceTime, you know, or Zoom, right? And normally before I would have people come into the shop, we'd sit and we'd hang out for a minute. I'd get to know you. I'd get to like feel your energy. And that has kind of changed over the virtual consults, right? Like, I'm chatting with you on the phone, but it's like, you know, I still need a little bit of something to grab that energy. And I think that in offering the tarot consults to kind of figure out where my clients are in their life, where they want to go in the directions they want to go with in their tattooing journey, has been like eye-opening, right? And it's like, I remember the first time I did it, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go with it, you know? And so I don't have like, you know, I don't do the Celtic cross. I don't do just the third, you know, the 3-card pull. Like, sometimes I use just the major arcana. Sometimes I use the full deck. And sometimes I do a 3-card pull. Sometimes I do a 6-card pull. It's like, it really just depends when I hit, you know, talk with someone virtually that way. I'm like, okay, now you know, we say, hey, what's up? You know, we're kind of chatting a little bit. And then I kind of know, like, all right, the way that I want to go, it's divination, right? Like, I get a little hit, you know, it's not like I'm just going into this without, you know, doing full on ritual before I talk to these people, and like making sure I purify and consecrate the place. And so that we have a nice container. It's just that, like, being able to do that, whether the client wants an animal or a flower or, you know, or then wants also a tarot tattoo. I mean, I've done the whole major arcana. I've tattooed the whole major arcana, and I've done it multiple times. And that's really where I started getting the idea, and clients asking me like, when are you going to make a deck? You know, like, we need you to make a deck. We're really waiting for you to make a deck. And now that is like a labor of love, right? Like, and I've started and I've scrapped it multiple times, but it will come. The deck will come when I am settled and ready and at the right time, right? Kairos, Synchronia.
Right.
Like, I've had
faith. That in and of itself is a job, creating a deck.
Yeah.
But I personally, I would love to see it because I think it'll be amazing looking.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm ready to create, you know, and being able to have time to do that, I think, is something that LA is actually going to offer me, you know. Have you guys been to New York? Have you visited ever?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I mean, we've been, but like, I haven't been
I'm not in your neighborhood.
Brooklyn. I have friends who live in Brooklyn. Like, when my family, see how I say it? Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like that. When my family came over on the boat or whatever, they lived in Brighton Beach, which was where all the Russian Jewish people lived.
Yep.
So I haven't seen Brooklyn since it's been cool.
Well, I mean, I just think New York as a whole, right? It's the oldest place in America. It has the energy to, go along with that. And it is very much a chaotic, go, 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 go energy, right? And for someone who is sensitive, living here for the last 14 years, I am now at the time where I don't think my nervous system can take it anymore, But again, with that said, there's so much gratitude to this city, but that is what I'm looking forward to moving to LA is a little bit more of that slower pace, having more time, maybe not so much noise, and being able to really kind of dedicate some time to my magical practice, creating a tarot deck, doing more tarot consults with clients and even doing them in person. I would love to be able to do them in person. I think that would add an extra bit of spice to it, So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong spiritual community in Los Angeles, as I'm sure there is in New York.
There is. I mean, we have BOTA, we have the beautiful Masonic Temple in Manhattan. The thing is, and I think it's funny because Naha and I were talking about it, is that I think she got to actually experience what a New York minute is while she was here. Because, she had two things planned. We had Lodge in the early afternoon, and then we had Middle Pillar in the evening. And I think there was like all of this hope to be able to have like time in between these two things when ultimately she had about 45 minutes, because it goes by like that. It's like people come to visit New York and they're like, I want to see the Statue of Liberty. I want to go to the MoMA. I want to do this. I want to do this. And it's like, pick one thing because you're going to be able to do one thing a day. Like that's it, because it's traveling and it's getting to places. It's chaos and it's beautiful. But it definitely, I think within the magic community, it's very hermit here, right? You are doing your magic. You are connected to the egregore, but you're in your home. You're alone. And I was also telling this to some of the people who came to Middle Pillar. I need people. And that is what is going to be so wonderful about being able to attend classes in person, attend lodge in person, attend ritual in person, because I will be able to be around more magicians. And that is only going to fuel my, spiritual practice. And I'm just so excited. I mean, Jen and I would get together. We would go to Central Park. We would do LBRP in the park, and it was beautiful. But we've only been able to do it one time. She lives way uptown in Washington Heights. I'm in Queens. That's where I live. I live in Queens. I work in Brooklyn, and it's just meeting up. It's like the day goes by like that. It's a snap and it's over, So being within community is another really big reason why I chose LA.
Any plans to go back to San Diego to visit? I mean, is that where you trained? Is that where you
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about how I got into tattooing is always a big question for people. And I always say this, is that I was at the right place at the right time. I was 19 years old. I was currently in school in college to become a journalist. I wanted to write for Rolling Stone. That was like my big thing, right? And I had started a minor in music and a minor in art. And I had been taking just some lower education so that I can then transfer to a university and do that whole thing, right? Well, I got an after-school job at a tattoo shop, and it changed my life forever, And very much like my magical path, I saw this path before me very clearly, right? And I was like, I am going to dedicate myself to this craft. I didn't grow up drawing. I grew up writing. That was my creative outlet, right? But I come from a family of artists. So I come from my grandfather on my biological father's side was a very well-known watercolorist. My mom was super crafty. So I have it in me, right? It's in my DNA. It's in my blood. And I also have a 10th house sun. So there's that. And I have a stellium in Capricorn in the 9th house. So the unknown, all of that is like, I come at it with a Capricorn attitude, right? And so I decided that I was going to become a tattooer, which meant that I needed to learn how to draw. And so instead of going to school for that, I ended up just taking just loads of books of Flash and photocopying them and going to the light box and turning those pages over and just copying them. And so muscle memory is the majority of that, right? And then you have the creativity that comes in with it to create different drawings. And so it took me about 6 years to feel like I could do something, right? And that is when I finally landed an apprenticeship with Mike Martin at Flesh Skin Graphics in Imperial Beach, California, which is about 3 exits away from the Tijuana border. So very Southern California, right? And I had a pretty old school apprenticeship, as the kids would say. You know, I learned how to make needles. I learned how to take apart and rebuild tattoo machines. I painted Flash. I cleaned the shop. I dealt with clients. I ordered things, you know, the whole business side of running a shop. And my mentor was amazing. And that was kind of unheard of. You know, he was an older Navy guy. He was fucking cool. He was a retired Master Chief in the Navy. He was in SEAL Team 1 and then went back in Desert Storm, SEAL Team 3. Like, he was a badass, right? And he taught himself how to tattoo on a ship. So I have like the full like Sailor Jerry moment, right? Like, I'm learning from someone who learned how to tattoo in the Navy. And also what was so special about it is that at that time, you know, this is like 2008, 2009. There was like a handful of femmes that I knew that were tattooing, but I was lucky enough to work in a shop with 3 or 4 other women. Right. And so at that time it was like unheard of, you know, and people talk about it all the time. Like femmes who have had, you know, old school apprenticeships, they had to go through the ringer. They never worked with women. And that's where the misogyny sets in, right? Is like, it's ingrained in us. Like, you have to, you know, you have to play the boys club rules, right? Like, you can't like, oh, someone's going to, you know, spank you on the butt. Like, you have to be okay with that. Like, that's just what it is. And I went through all of that, right? And that's why I talk about the fact that I have to dismantle my own misogyny, you know, within my day-to-day life because of the upbringing that I had. But it was a safe space. Like, I was able to be who I wanted to be at that point, you know, in time. And I learned amazing things from my mentor. And I'm just so, so grateful to him. He's no longer with us, but he's definitely one of my guides, which is like really cool. He comes through me sometimes and I'm so, so grateful for that. And so, yeah, I ended my apprenticeship in 2010. And in 2011, I moved to New York City. So a lot of people could say that I started my career in San Diego, but really I started it in New York, you know, and I am so grateful to my whole team above that has been looking out for me and guiding me on this path, because not only was I told multiple times that I would never make it, I was able to not just make it, but to thrive, you know, and open a business in New York City and have the amazing clientele that I have here. And also I've tattooed around the world, you know, I've tattooed in Australia, all over Europe. And I mean, I'm blessed, you know, hashtag blessed for days. But yeah, that's basically my story. You know, it comes from someone who just had dedication and the wherewithal to say, you're going to tell me I can't do this, so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it really good.
Your tattooing seems very sensual to me. And so I'm curious if some of the inspiration comes both from female and male archetypes, if there's a certain blending of sensuality, sexuality that comes into play, and And in that sensuality, there also seems like there's a story being told.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you for seeing me in my art. Like, I think that that's just really beautiful. I am someone who absolutely adores, period dramas and kind of that like old-timey vintage feel. A lot of my artwork, when I'm drawing it, there's a lot of symbolism also that comes through, occult symbolism, spiritual symbolism, and just the idea of creating something that doesn't look always 2D, because that's what tattooing is, right? It's 2D. And for me, when people ask me, oh, what is your style of tattooing? I do traditional illustrative tattooing. So I am always using multiple line weights to create the movement within just say line work of tattooing, but then also within the shading. So I'll do stuff that's really bright and bold, thicker lines, lots of black, lots of color. But then I'll also do stuff that's more whimsical, more delicate, more feminine, if you will, right? And I think that that's the blend of the masculine and the feminine, which is very important in not only me and my gender, but also in my spiritual practice as well, right? I think that's what's so beautiful about magic, is that it is both. You need that duality. And I think that is like one of my life's purposes, is to really embody that duality of the feminine and the masculine. Because though I'm non-binary, that doesn't mean that I'm not femme. And it also doesn't mean that I'm not a masculine person. I am just both of those things. So I don't really fit in one box or the other, right? I am more than. So, and I think that's more of an explanation of my gender, not so much, well, maybe my tattooing too. I think that you could see both of that, both of those things happening there. But whether I'm doing color or black and gray, it's important to me to make sure that the tattoos that I'm doing are not only technically sound, compositionally sound, they also are very pleasing to the eye, aesthetically, And I think that also goes with being able to sit down with someone, and before I even draw the tattoo, I can already see it on the person, right? Like, I can already see how I kind of want to place things to accentuate different body parts, or to mask things that people maybe don't like so much about themselves. I think that is what's so beautiful about tattooing, and something that I definitely understand. I got my first tattoo when I was 16. I've always had very large feet, right? I wear a size 11. And so I got my first tattoo on my foot. And I instantly loved my feet so much more, and I think that tattooing can do that for people, right? You don't like your arms, or you don't like your thighs, or you don't like your ankles, or whatever, and it's just like, well, what if we just kind of put a little bit of wallpaper on it, I think that the body is your temple, right? And you see these churches, they be spending all sorts of money on art. So why wouldn't you just decorate your temple the same way?
I definitely feel that way about eyebrows. I had like a sort of like a minor like low thyroid thing when I was in my early 20s, and the ends of my eyebrows fell out. So then I had very, very light half eyebrows and then nothing. And it was just, I was penciling them on. When I would sweat at the gym or go swimming, they would come off. And it was like, this doesn't feel good. And so I started microblading and tattooing when I got to LA. And what I loved was that people would be surprised to hear this, but the lack of judgment here in LA. Like, yes, girl, you want your eyebrows tattooed on your face? Let's do it. You're going to love it.
My eyebrows.
It wasn't like
my eyebrows are completely tattooed.
Did you do them yourself?
No. Audrey Glass, who is one of my best friends and who is like basically brow queen to the stars. She owns Audrey Glass Cosmetics in Orange. She's who taught me how to do microblading, and she's the one that does my brows, because I don't think I could do it to myself. But I think that is like one of the things, right? It's like, people nowadays, we get Botox, we get filler, we get microblading. We do all of these things to make ourselves feel more comfortable just in our meat suit while we have it. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
What Drew said.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I think.
What was her name again?
Audrey Glass.
Audrey Glass.
She's amazing.
Taking note
Amazing. I cannot sing her praises anymore because, wow, like, her work speaks for itself. She's been doing it a really long time. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, so I'm not going to say it. But she's tattooed some very famous people.
Do you think eyebrows are the most painful? I mean, listen, when you get a tattoo, you're going to have a little bit of pain. Like, everybody knows that.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought the rib cage was the easiest. I thought the eyebrows hurt the most. And then the inside, like the instep of the foot hurt the second most. Is there one most painful place, or is it just each person has a different pain tolerance?
I think each person has a different pain tolerance. I also think that each tattooer tattoos differently. So you have a lot of variables that go into that. Blanket statement is that tattoos hurt. There's no tattoos that are just like totally fine. No, tattoos hurt. If someone is telling you that they don't hurt, they might be lying, or they might actually kind of like it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. So it does depend on the person. Personally, I think for me, the most painful, so I have a full turtleback back piece. It goes from my shoulders down to the middle of my back of my thighs. I will die on this cross that my butt was the worst pain. And then the second worst was probably my stomach. And then I have like stars on my knuckles here. That was pretty terrible too. Mostly for healing purposes. Like, I got them tattooed and then was like wearing gloves and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, everywhere hurts. Some more than others. But yeah, I think that anyone who tells you that tattoos don't hurt, they're lying. But there is now numbing cream. You know, numbing cream can be used. And I think that's the thing about microblading is that, you know, with my microblading clients, and I know Audrey does this too, is you do an initial topical numbing for about 15-20 minutes. You do the first pass, and then you put another topical numbing on. And so you're completely numb during your microblading session. And then it wears off and it maybe feels a little hot, a little burny, a little swollen. But other than that, I think that getting your eyebrows done is probably the easiest.
You know, it was just probably me. What I did was I didn't follow the directions. I was still drinking alcohol like 8 years ago when I had them tattooed on. And I think I drank alcohol the night before. And what was I not supposed to do? I had caffeine or I had Advil or something. So I went to dinner with a client that night and my eyebrows are just like bleeding.
Oh no.
And he's like, are your eyebrows bleeding? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. I don't know. And everyone I talked to is like, that's not like, did you actually listen to the instructions?
I mean, to me, that sounds like it might be more your artist than you.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. So
that's validating.
But I mean, yeah, I feel like the numbing that we use once the eyebrows are open, like numbing cream basically closes the capillaries. So you shouldn't bleed too much after you're fully numb. You know what I mean? But it could be the alcohol thins your blood, you know? So it could be that. I mean, I always tell clients when you're coming to get tattooed, make sure you get a good night's rest the night before. Make sure you eat a very big breakfast or lunch. Actually digesting while getting tattooed is probably the best thing you can do for your body, because your body goes into a fight or flight situation, you know, while you're getting tattooed. So if your body has the resources to pull the sugar, like all of that, the carbs from whatever your stomach is digesting, your body's going to be way more relaxed.
So when you're doing tattooing, back to your magic and tarot, are you finding right now that your clients that there's a particular challenge or two that seems to keep popping up, or a particular request that seems to be popping up right now that's reflective of the times, or reflective of, sort of a collective emotion or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so I would assume as a sensitive person, you would absorb a lot of that and you would recognize a lot of that.
I definitely think, I think transition has been a big theme this year for a lot of people. And obviously we're in a chariot year, right? So it totally makes sense. But I have talked to so many of my tarot clients, so many of my tattoo clients that have just been like, I'm quitting my job, or I quit my job and I'm, moving away, or I'm, getting married, or, I'm just doing these big life things. Right. And so when it comes to, these clients in tattooing, and they're talking about kind of wanting to like memorialize this like transitional time in their life, which I completely understand because I'm literally living it as well. A lot of those designs tend to come out as natural things. Like they want to get something that reminds them of their childhood home, something that either like a cardinal, or, a flower, or they want to tattoo something very large on them, like a stomach piece, to kind of just like, again, mark this moment. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a specific image. It's more so just the process of going through the transformation of being tattooed, right? Because that also in itself is a transformation, right? It's like almost a transformation. It's a transmutation, right? Of certain things, right? Like a lot of my clients come to me and have either had, some very bad things happen in their lives, right? And they're just like, I just need to get tattooed. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, let's sit down. Let's like talk about it. Because again, definitely don't want trauma-informed tattooing to happen. Like, decisions to happen. Like where you're just like, I'm so like crazy right now and I just need to do something, and then end up maybe regretting it down the road, right? That happens a lot with people who want to get their partner's names tattooed on them. I always think that's a bad idea. But hey, I'm not here to tell you that what you want is a terrible idea unless it's going to harm you in some way, right? So I think, yes, transition is huge. I think that's probably been the biggest one this year. And I'm definitely interested to see, as we move into, another year, justice, correct? I think is next year. So I'm definitely interested in seeing like what that's going to look like. Right.
I'm curious too. That's really interesting. Do you think that sometimes people come in as, to ground themselves a little bit with tattooing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've always been someone, who has had this, like, I'm not someone to say that I am something without like actual merit behind it. Right. So like, I do describe myself as an intuitive tattooer, and it's not because I'm like, I'm now an intuitive tattooer and I just made it up. No, I have a really good friend of mine, who is a shaman and an energy worker. Her name is Vita. She goes by Readings by Vita on Instagram, and she's amazing. She is someone who is a good friend of mine and came and got tattooed, and we did a lot of ancestral work with her, through tattooing. So, while this process of tattooing was happening, she was, receiving messages from her guides, and they were messages for me. And she was the one that told me that I was an intuitive tattooer. And she was like, your ascendant masters and loved ones are telling me right now, that is who you are. Immediately after that session, I booked an appointment for an Akashic record reading with my friend Courtney Cook, who is Courtney Cook _ on Instagram. She does Akashic readings. Another great practitioner for Akashic readings is Shannon, who is Radical Reiki, who is actually coming to my house later today. And the first thing she did when she opened or said, transcribed when she opened the records was, "Hello, Star Child," which I think is so interesting because by the time I was 18, I had 28 stars tattooed on me. And as an Aquarius, you know, the star card, it's the guiding light, right? Like, and so they did proceed to tell me that this is not the first lifetime that I've been a sacred scribe. And so in that intuitive tattooing, there is the sacred scribe, right? Because tattooing, whether you're doing it for shits and giggles or you're doing it with a higher purpose, is a blood ritual, right? And this is actually something that I kind of want to I want to hone in on and do some real work with that and like maybe create some sort of, I don't know, pamphlet or book about that, because I think that it is something that has been kind of the theme in my career without me even really knowing it, right? But knowing it, it's like remembering, right? And so after that, I was like, okay, I need to not only be just the material person, the egocentric Drew in tattooing, I need to bring in my spirituality. And that is how it comes full circle, right? That is how there's healing for my clients and for me done within tattooing. And so that's where the whole intuitive tattooer thing comes from. And also just being able to like talk to someone for like 3 minutes and be like, oh yeah, no, you need like, this is what you should get. You know, I think this would look amazing on you. And again, it's like seeing, like tattoos are always there, right? They've been there. You just need someone to actualize them. And so that's where I kind of come in. It's like when people get tattooed by me and they look in the mirror when we're done, they're like, it's like it's always been there, you know? And I'm like, you're right. It has been. You just needed someone to actualize it. And that's where I come in.
That's wild and beautiful. So tell me, how is it a blood ritual?
Basically what tattooing is you've got a handful of needles, right? And you're using a machine to create artwork within the skin, which ultimately opens the skin up. We're going into, I think, the 4th layer of your epidermis. So there is blood that happens. Blood comes through, blood and plasma. And when you are doing something like that, where me, the practitioner or the tattoo artist, has my hands on someone for hours, right? There's energy transfer regardless if I'm doing it on purpose or if it's just happening, right? And so it's like, you know, back in medieval times, people would be like, oh, the humors, you got to get the humors out. We got to do some bloodletting. You know what I mean? It's not the same, but it's kind of the same, you know? Whereas, you know, you're creating artwork that is creating scars within the skin and you've got blood, you're working with blood, right? Like I take bloodborne pathogen classes. I have to, you know, it's like very medical in that way, sanitation, all of that. And so in that, what I did at the school was pretty much the first time I did full on ritual. Like it was very ritualistic. I did full on LBRP before we opened. During, you know, when people would leave and someone would come in, I would do, you know, I was doing the cross all day long, you know, and so I think that in a way it is very much a blood ritual. Like, and I guess I could coin that term. I don't know.
Yeah. As an offering, do you feel like it's an offering?
Definitely can be, especially if someone's coming in wanting to do some healing work within like trauma within the body, you know, and it's that offering up of, you know, the pain, the blood, all of that, you know, like I have clients that will keep their stencils, you know, and they'll do, you know, a lot of everyone from the school, I think, kept their stencil, and that's all charged, right? Like it's all very charged. And I think you can do your own altar work with that if you'd like. Not like I let people leave with biohazard, but you know what I mean? You are then leaving the shop and you either have a bandage on, you know, and you pretty much can do what you will after that, you know, if you want to collect the goo. I'm not telling people to do that, but if you wanted to, I guess you could. Like once you leave my eyesight, I have no power over you.
I think what you're saying, if I can interpret this, and I don't know if this is complete accuracy, but I'm sort of getting that it's like a journey and you're sort of honoring yourself. Let's say I've come through sexual assault trauma of some sort, and I want a tattoo to sort of honor that.
Well, more so maybe honor yourself. Yeah. And like take that power back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it is definitely in that instance, that particular instance, I think reclaiming your body like that, as someone who is a sexual assault survivor, like is such an important and powerful thing that like you could be getting something that doesn't even pertain to that, but it's the intention that you put within it. And that is what magic is, right? It's all intention. It all is. Like magic, you could do ritual all day long, but if the intention isn't there, it's hollow, right? So when you're coming in to get tattooed, you put that intention in there and it's imbued in the tattoo, you know? And I think like I have offered in the past, like Reiki, obviously doing the tarot consults. I've offered like energy work within the tattooing, but again, it's one of those things. Like even if it's not meant to be an energy work session, it's still an energy work session. I'm still touching you for hours on end. We're still having very vulnerable conversations, you know? And I think that is something that I really pride myself on, is that people feel safe enough with me to be vulnerable, you know? And I mean, I'm so grateful for that.
What advice do you have for maybe somebody who had aspirations or current, future, past, whatever, they might want to get into the art of tattooing, but they might be feeling like they are not artistic enough? And then what advice would you give to somebody who's like, this magic stuff sounds cool, but I'm scared?
Well, for the magic, I'm just going to say, because I think my answer would be pretty straightforward, that like a lot of people are afraid of what they don't understand. And it's that fear that will drive people away, right? But if you come in to magic or the idea of magic with a complete open mind, you will be amazed by the results that it can produce. As someone who had to take like about a year, maybe more 10 months, like vetting, like just talking about 22, I vetted that school for like about 10 months to a year before I attended. You know, because you go on Instagram and it's like spells for magic, spells for love, like join this 6-week course and you can learn how to do your yin yang, whatever, right? Spend millions of dollars. And so, of course, obviously I had been directed to the school by someone who I really trust, obviously, but I was skeptical. And then I think I said, okay, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to do this with an open mind. And as soon as I joined, I was like, oh, I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm here. I'm in it. And again, like I've been a spiritual person all my life. You know, astrology was really like my first love in that metaphysical realm. But then coming into tarot and then learning tarot, you know, from a teacher like Naha, I just was like, my mind was blown. I had no idea. Like I knew who the Golden Dawn was. I knew who Masons were, but I did not understand what Hermeticism was going to do for my person. Right. And it's like, this is what I've been looking for. And I think, again, it comes back to multiple lifetimes, right? Like it's all about the remembering. So another thing is, I think that people think it's a quick fix, right? They want the love spells. They want the money spells. Like it's quick, right? It's low vibe. It's easy. Magic is not quick. It is something that unfolds like a beautiful rose over time. And it takes tending to in order for that rose to fully bloom. So dedication is the first and foremost thing. You have to decide, right? Like I said about tattooing, I decided, I made the dedication. I said, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do it with my whole heart, my whole body, my whole being. And the results I received from dedicating myself to my craft is insurmountable. So now that I've now taking on this dedication to my magical path, I can't wait. Like, I'm so excited, you know? And so I do think that like reaping the benefits is something that you show up, you do the work, and the work is going to work for you, you know? As far as tattooing goes, I think a lot of people, you know, the internet's an amazing place, but it's also a terrible place, and especially for tattooing. I mean, people now can just go on YouTube and learn how to tattoo, you know? So my advice would be don't do that, because you're just going to end up learning a bunch of bad habits that you're going to have to unlearn. Learn from someone who has been tattooing for longer than 10 years. Someone who has been in the industry and has seen it change. Someone who knows the traditions and can say, yeah, some of this stuff was really fucked up, but like the core value is still really important. I think the tradition of tattooing is something that's very important to me. And I think that everyone should be able to learn tattooing if they decide that they want to do it. I mean, my mentor used to say a monkey could do it, you know, because like ultimately you dedicate yourself, you're going to do it. You know, I know a lot of fine artists who are amazing illustrators, amazing painters, amazing art drawers, you know, can't tattoo worth shit. It's true, because you are two people in that moment. You are an artist and you are a technician. So when you pick up that machine and you start to tattoo, you are no longer an artist, you're a technician. And you are basically building, sculpting, you know, putting work into something that is not just pen to paper. You're using a vibrating machine that weighs a little bit more, a couple ounces, you know, on a human body that moves. You know, so it's a difficult thing. And again, it takes work. It takes dedication. So don't think you know everything right off the bat, because you have no idea. And take all the advice you can get. Be humble, because there are a million other people out there that can do it better than you. And one day, hopefully, you will be one of them.
That's good advice for magic too, I think. Be humble.
It all goes, it's like the crossroads of magic and tattooing. It's like, they're like pretty much parallel paths in a lot of ways. And I think that is, again, another thing that like drew me to figuring out that like Hermeticism was ritualistic magic, ceremonial magic was something that I could definitely do, because I already tattoo. It's already a ceremony in its way. We have to set up, we create an altar in a way. That is our station. That's where, you know, the ink goes, the soap, all of that stuff, right? And so I think that, yeah, it could be the learning and the teachings can be seen as the same thing.
So if people are interested in connecting with you or booking a tattoo or booking a tarot reading, or can they book both? That's what I really want to know, because that sounds like a good time.
Yes, you can book both. Right now, during this transition, I'm telling people to head to my website or my Instagram, which is at Drew Linden. And you can head to my bio on my Instagram, and there's a drop-down menu. Sign up for my newsletter, because that is where you are going to have, you know, the first access to information about where I'm going to be, you know, whether, you know, in LA, in New York, in Portland, in San Francisco, in Austin. Those are the main cities that I have traveled to prior. But, you know, even if you have a city that I've never been to, but you have a bunch of people that want to get tattooed, or, you know, whatever, I would love to travel there. But on my website, there is a drop-down menu for you to book a tarot consult or a tarot reading. And you can also just book tattoos straight through my website as well. And the website is just my name as well. So it's www.drewlinden.com.
And your Insta is?
Drew Linden.
And then are you on any other social media?
I mean, I have a TikTok, but I don't ever.
We've had this discussion.
Real bad about using it, which, I mean, hopefully, I guess I got to get with the times, right? Like, this elder millennial has to get with the times and start using TikTok. And my TikTok.
You don't really have to.
I know, right?
You don't have to.
No, you don't have to. There are reasons not to.
I know. I mean, that's true.
To.
That's true. But I think my name on there is official Drew Linden.
Okay. Otherwise, it's at Drew Linden, correct? On Instagram? Mm-hmm. Or www.drewlinden.com.
That's it.
And now appearing in Brooklyn, soon to be appearing in Los Angeles. Since I do not know anything about tattooing, do you need to make an advance schedule? This is not a, get a beer and go out at midnight and do kind of thing.
No, definitely would prefer being able to have a consult prior to the tattoo and making an appointment. It just works a little bit better for me, just as far as like getting to know my clients. A lot of this is going to be like people. I have a small clientele already built into LA, but for new people, I would love to meet you. You know what I mean? I want to meet you. I want to talk about the tattoos. Like, let's chat. So it's not so much like get a beer, go out at midnight. It's more like send me an email and maybe let's meet up chat for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Or even on FaceTime, like I could definitely do that. But I am looking forward to being able to like schedule consults in person starting in LA.
Have to have a meet and greet.
I mean, you might have to get your first tattoo.
No.
Let's go, Diana, please. I'll go with you. I'll hold your hand.
I'll do the trail reading. I'll do everything else but.
I'll get the tattoos.
We can do an imaginary tattoo. That's it.
I mean, I could just draw on you and you can be like, I did it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That works. That could work.
Thank you so much for being here today, Drew. This conversation has been so much more deeper, more beautiful, more everything than we could have hoped for. So thank you for your time. Thank you for wanting me to be on your show. I mean, when I heard Naha's interview, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I was so happy to hear it. And then I didn't even know you did a podcast, Lexi. Like, I had no idea. And so, like, to meet both of you, I do appreciate you giving me the honor to be on your show, and I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, our pleasure. I mean, I think it's very worthwhile endeavor, and I especially appreciate the artistry of it, and it's very in-depth and multidimensional, which I did not know, and I like to learn. So I personally really appreciate it, and I have a feeling our listeners will be crazy about it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm available. I'll come on and chat, tattoo chat all the time. Tattoo magic chat,
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the SOULFAM Podcast. Be sure to tune in to every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your SOULFAM.